while people are reassembling, let me say during this talk that I do have two little handouts for you. One is this one called Counting the Casualties of the Sexual Revolution. You'll get that going around. And then the other is this little bookmark, which you open up and there's a place for you to write. Okay, so if you would mind, Mary, start circulating these. You can start circulating those, and pamphlets. Here comes the pamphlets, Counting the Casualties. It looks a little bit like the manifesto, but it isn't exactly. Here you go. Go ahead, pass those around this side. Okay, there should be more than enough for everyone. Okay, so today, but by the way, did y'all have a great breakout session? Did you hear something good? Did you hear some good stuff?
Excellent.
Yes, I heard a really outstanding talk by Sister about pornography and equipping children to deal with pornography. Really, that was really outstanding, and I'm excited about what she's doing. Here, let me pose for you, honey. I'm really excited about what she's doing, and one of the things she pointed out in her talk, kind of throughout the talk, is that the way to deal with pornography, all of her methods are relational. They're about building up relationships, and so I just want to reiterate that at the heart of Christian sexual ethics is the importance of the person and also of the relational, of the fact that each human person is meant for love. That's who we really are as persons. We're not just bundles of impulses trying to be satisfied or something like that, which is kind of the modern, that's how we thought about it as economists. You know, we were always thinking in terms of maximizing utility and all of that kind of thing. And the church is presenting something different, which is the person is meant for love. So the last talk here at the Wichita conference at the Spiritual Life Center is Dr. J's 3.5-step plan for reforming the church and culture. This is based on an article that I wrote in the National Catholic Register. I write at the Register fairly regularly, and so I've been writing on these themes there of how ordinary people who do not have a specific vocation inside the church can nonetheless contribute to what the church is doing. So if you are a canon lawyer or a law enforcement person, you have a very particular role, perhaps, in dealing with clergy sexual abuse and the different problems in the church. But ordinary folk have plenty to offer, right? So that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is to talk about how you can use whatever your vocational gifts might be, no matter who you are, how you can contribute in a positive way. And let me reiterate what I said earlier, that in my opinion, we have no right to leave the church in her hour of need. This is the church that Christ created for us. It was given to us as a gift, and it's our responsibility to hand it on as a gift to others. We don't have the right to walk away from it. That's my opinion. And that's just motivating me and makes me get up in the morning and do things, right? So the handout that I've given you, I've got two things for you that are new. First, I want you to take a look at this little card that we have here. This is a card, it's a combination, basically it's a bookmark and a prayer card. So if you open it up, you'll see a place where you can write things down. We used to use this whenever we would put on our little Healing Family Breakdown half-day workshop that we used to do. What I want you to do with this is to start jotting down the names of people you know who have been harmed by the sexual revolution. And then you keep this card and you tuck it in your prayer book or your Bible or put it on the mirror in your bathroom or wherever you're going to see it, and be reminded to pray for those people, okay? Because there are a lot of people. It will take you no time at all, I think, to fill this up. You can take as many cards as you want, as you think you need, okay? But I want you to start making it concrete in your mind that people have been harmed by this, and then to make a conscious effort to pray for them. Now, secondly, I want to take a look at this brochure that I gave you yesterday. Do you guys still have this brochure in front of you? It's called, Do You Know a Survivor of the Sexual Revolution? And that is a rhetorical question, because everyone knows a survivor of the sexual revolution. When I first had this thing printed out, I took it to the printer, I went to pick it up with the printer, and the printer says to me, I know someone in every one of those categories, right? So it's everywhere, okay? So if you look down the column here, as I mentioned yesterday, you will see what we have identified as 12 survivors of the sexual revolution, 12 categories of survivors. If you open it up, what I didn't describe yesterday is here in this kind of central column is a brief description of who these people are and what they're about, right? A child and divorced or the reluctantly divorced, the pornography addict, who Sister talked about a few moments ago. We describe who they are. And then over here, this large column here, it says, is this what you were told? Now, what you'll see there, for every one of these 12 categories, you're going to see 3 or 4 statements. And if you read them, what you're going to see is they're all incorrect. They're all false. So, just start at the top. Child of divorce, is this what you were told? Children are resilient. Kids don't need to live with both parents. Kids are fine as long as the adults are happy. Children have no problems with their parents' new love interests and new children. Okay. So what is this whole thing here? Lies. These are all lies. Okay, these are all lies. And you'll recognize every one of them, that this is all part of the toxic soup in which we're all swimming. So I want to, with this in mind, I want to tell you a little story of something that happened to me when I lived in San Diego. I lived in San Diego. I drove my daughter. She was an Irish dance, and we drove from San Diego up to Fresno for an Irish dance competition in Fresno. And I had with me in the car my daughter and my son, who was about 15 at the time, and was about 12 at the time, and we had our 2 foster children in the car as well. So it was a road trip, me and 4 kids, it was a lot of fun. And we're driving along, and we get off the freeway near Fresno, and we come to what is called the Tool Fog. Okay, this is the Tool Fog. You get off the freeway, and all of a sudden I can't see anything. I mean, it's really, really dark and foggy. And my son, who's sitting next to me, says, "Mom, you're going down the wrong side of the road." And sure enough, you know, and so I dashed off the road and was safe, and obviously I didn't die and kill all those children. We made it. But here's the point. When you were driving down the road in a fog, things happen, right? A lot of bad things happen. So look at the Tool Fog. That's the center line. That's the berm. Okay, this is pretty serious fog. Now, when you've got all this going on, you've got a lot of people driving down the wrong side of the road in the fog. That's what this is doing to us. We're all driving down the wrong side of the road in a fog. And a lot of people are not making it. This is an image of an actual crash in California from 2001 in the Truly fog. Okay, this is what happens. This is what's happening to your friends and neighbors. It probably has happened to some of you. At this point in our history, many people, probably most people, have been both victims of the sexual revolution, because everybody who buys into one of these lies is in a sense a victim, right? Because you're doing stupid stuff that you wouldn't have done if somebody hadn't put something stupid in your mind, right? We're both victims and perpetrators. So it's complicated because we're not innocent lambs, but at the same time, we're not completely, it's not all our fault either, okay? So that's what we're dealing with in our culture now. And if we're going to make any progress, we have to pay attention to that. So if we ask ourselves how many victims have there been of the sexual revolution, this brochure was our attempt to answer that question. If you open it up, what you'll see is for each of the 12 categories, our estimate of the survivors, of the people who've been harmed. So the first one, the children of divorce, about 1 million children per year, every year since 1972, children of unmarried parents, and so on. Many of the categories, if you look down here, for example, look down this first column here, and it says reluctantly single parents, and you'll see on the side there it says no data, there's a little star there, no data. That means nobody even asked this question. Are you a single parent who would have rather not been a single parent? You would have rather been married to the guy, or is it you didn't want this outcome? There are several categories on here where we literally have no idea how many people are involved because nobody has thought it worthwhile to even ask that question. So that's what we're dealing with as a culture. A lot of wounded souls, a lot of hurt souls, and with people who should be keeping track of stuff, not even keeping track of the right things, right? How many people would have been harmed by their participation in the hookup culture? How many frozen embryos are there? Do you know we don't even know that? We don't even know how many frozen embryos there are. There's some made-up numbers that the industry puts stuff, but there's no systematic reporting of that. It's amazing. I mean, we really get down to it. And in addition to that, I want to just point out that many of you also are suffering bystanders because you're watching your kids or your grandkids go through something. You're watching a train wreck, and you really can't do much about it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, pretty much everybody has that somewhere in their situation, right? Everybody has that. So this is what we have to deal with in one form or fashion. So here's the 3.5-step plan for reforming the church. Step 1, pray. And I'm going to go through these steps for you. Step 1, pray. Step 2, learn, educate yourself. Number 3, speak out. And a little bit later, I will tell you about the half step. I'll tell you what that half step is. So let's go and talk about pray, first of all, okay? Now, in a room full of Catholics, I don't have to tell you that you need to pray, okay? But we need to have perhaps a little focus to our prayer. In Sister's talk, she talked about turning to the Mother of God. Now, last year, and again this year, Father Richard Heilman sponsored Rosary Coast to Coast. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's called Roman Catholic Man, Rosary Coast to Coast. In October, he had a day where he said, let's all say the Rosary on exactly the same day at the same time. So the Ruth Institute, we were the local organizers for that in Lake Charles. And we called it Rosary Around the Lake. That's Lake Charles there in the background. And we got people to come and, kind of make a big ring as much as we could. And we told people, buy 10 blue t-shirts and we'll give you a yellow one, a gold one for free. Okay, and so that kind of induced people to put together a team of people and everything, and it looked very cool. The optics were great. And we picked those colors because they were the color of the local university. So when it got down to the end, to get close to it, and people said, well, I want to come, but I can't buy the t-shirt. It's like, if you have a McNeese University t-shirt in your closet, just wear that, and it'll be fine. And so all these people showed up. Well, I want you to know, we sold 500 t-shirts, and 800 people showed up for that thing, including our bishop. So how cool was that? Meantime, Father Highland's doing this all over the country. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. You guys in Wichita, you got a lot of good stuff going on here. Just look up Rosary Coast to Coast, see what Father Hellman's up to, and see if this is something that you guys would want to participate in. But in any case, let me give you a few things to kind of focus on. Focus your prayer effort. This is my daily prayer for discernment. Dear Lord, keep me from doing anything mean or stupid that would drive people away from you. That kind of cuts to the chase, right? If you're a public figure, you got to keep your mouth shut sometimes, right? I'm being taunted right now online to respond to things, and I don't need to respond to every single thing that somebody puts in my face, right? Okay. All right. I also have a little prayer for priests that I would like to commend to you to think about. I started thinking about this last summer when the things began to come out about then Cardinal McCarrick. And so this is the prayer that I came up with. Each one of these elements you can probably think about and think of a case that would have inspired it. Lord, preserve and sanctify our priests, that they be healed of any wrong done to them, that they repent of all wrong they've done to others, that they be completely released from all temptations of the flesh, that they surrender all excuse-making and rationalization for sin, that they profess and proclaim the fullness of truth without reservation, that they live lives of perfect purity and holiness. Amen. So I commend that to you to think about. So back to our Rosary campaign, I want to show you something. This is something that we did when we were promoting the Rosary campaign, Rosary Around the Lake. I put this billboard up in Lake Charles. As you can see, it's the Fatima image and this famous quote that probably a lot of you are familiar with. I think somebody else used this quote at this conference even. The last battle will be for the family, and there's the image. Now, you can do that in Lake Charles because it's a pretty Catholic town. Most people in this particular part of Louisiana, people are either Catholic or they're Baptist. And so Baptists, as you know, you probably are aware, they're not too big on Marian piety. So that's That was an understatement. Okay, so I put up this billboard kind of for them. I thought they'd get a kick out of it. Honor my mom, y'all. And I don't know if they laughed, but it made me laugh. You know, every time I drive by, I kind of crack up a little bit, you know. So anyway, and we did have a few non-Catholics attend our prayer thing, so that was a very good thing. That can only be good. So here's your call to action. Wait a minute, this is call to action number 2. I wonder what number 1 was supposed to be. Did I miss something? I can't count anymore. Okay, so everybody take out your rosary. Everybody got a rosary in your pocket? Okay. See, y'all, y'all are good, right? Everybody's got a rosary in their pocket or in their purse or something. Everybody's got their rosary on hand. This is our weapon, right? Padre Pio says this is our weapon. Okay, so here is what I want you to do. I want you to pledge, if you have not already done this, I want you to pledge to form a rosary group. Get a group of people. What? Hoorah! These girls back here already have one.
Can I tell you what we're going to do?
I want to hear.
Okay.
I want to hear. I want to hear what y'all are going to
The
do.
Society of Gilbert Keith Chesterton, which is a new apostle of the Roman Catholic Church, is starting a rosary league for intentions for GK groups, for our communities, for our loved ones, for our priests, and we are starting it in July. Well, I can't really say where exactly yet, but
Hoorah!
yeah,
Hoorah!
These rosary leagues are starting all over,
Yeah.
and you don't have to belong to a GK book discussion group to be a part of the GK Rosary League.
There you go. All right. See, any excuse will do. Any excuse for the rosary will do, and Blessed Mother will love it. Right? That's the thing. So the reason we want to be getting together on a regular basis to pray. And why would the Ruth Institute run a rosary rally when we're actually supposed to be like an interfaith group? What I told people is we are not going to get through this thing without divine intervention. And y'all can come and participate. We can do it, you know, we can do a lot of different kinds of prayer, but doggone it, this is what we're going to do, and you can be part of it if you want to. You know, and everybody, all my people, whatever their religion is, as soon as I say we're not getting through this without divine intervention, they're all right. That's true. You know, they all get that that's the case. So anyway, they kind of overlook our Catholic quirks, shall we say, to be part of what we're doing. So I want you to pledge to form a rosary group to pray together on a regular basis. So what we're doing here in a kind of sneaky way, since you guys have already thought of this, is we're making an excuse for people to get together physically, face to face, not just online. Online's very important. There's nothing wrong with online, right? But being together can become the basis for the next steps that we're going to do, right? So that you're physically together, face to face, meeting each other on a regular basis, that's built into your schedule, that you get together once a week with your group. Maybe it could be after Mass, maybe it could be before Mass, well, you know, whatever it is, but figure out something. If your mom's dropping kids off at school, a lot of times all the moms happen to be at the school at the same time. You can find a place to get together, you know, every Tuesday or something as soon as you drop the kids off. Whatever the situation might be. In Lake Charles, there are guys who meet together before work at some of the plants. You know, we have a lot of petrochemical plants in Lake Charles, and the fellas meet before work to do their prayer group and whatnot. So the first pledge that I have in mind for you is to form the rosary group and pray together and move forward. Now, the second step is to learn. The second step, first step, pray. Second step, learn. Now, here's the thing I want to tell you about learning. It has been said, and I can guarantee you, I can testify that this is true. If you will study a topic 30 minutes a day, if you will do that, at the end of 5 years, you will be an expert on that topic. That's true. And again, I've got a Chesterton lady nodding in agreement in the background back there, okay? If you will study 30 minutes a day on a topic, you will be an expert at the end of 5 years. Where are you going to be in 5 years anyway? You might as well get on with it, right? Some of us will be dead, but most of us won't, right? I mean, what else are you going to do, right? So I would really encourage you to begin thinking about that. I've given you a ton of information. Sister gave you a lot of information. Chuck gave you a lot of information. Dusty gave you a lot of information. There are a lot of things. What I would suggest you do is begin now thinking about what you want to focus on, that you can see yourself, kind of being interested in and passionate about, and give yourself over to that topic, to learning more about it, so that you can feel confident speaking about it. That's the thing. A lot of times sort of that something needs to be said, but you can't figure out what to say. If you're studying it 30 minutes a day, you're going to be confident when the time comes. That's a point. So you can, if you want, use the Ruth Institute newsletter. We send stuff out every week, and we have it in this format, the 3.5-step plan format, in our newsletter every week, because we're giving you an article. Usually our newsletter has an article to read that's no more than 1,000 words. Often there's a video, often there's a podcast. So there's always something there specific and manageable for you to read or listen to or watch. You can make that the basis for your study group. You get together, you're saying your rosary together. Okay, guys, let's talk about this topic. Or let's watch this video together. And you're educating each other, encouraging each other, moving each other along. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it our way. You can use Bishop Barron's material. There's Theology of the Body material. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can use. I'm just saying, fold this into something you're already doing, so it's part of your life and part of your schedule. And you'll start getting our newsletter, and you'll see that there are things there that you might do. So this is your pledge. Pledge number 2, pledge to read that Ruth Institute newsletter by yourself, or better, with your rosary group or some other group. Now, speak out. Step 3, pray. Number 1, 2. Number 2, learn. Number 3, speak out. Now, speaking out can include all kinds of things. It could include something as simple as you signing an online petition. That's really easy. That's really easy to sign a petition if you can find something, if something's out there. Probably a lot of you are doing that. Sharing and posting on social media, writing to elected officials or church officials. Some of you are already doing that. So somebody told me about writing a letter to the editor. I can't remember who that person was or where they are. But some of you are already doing that. And most importantly, reaching out and talking to your friends. Being willing to have those one-on-one conversations with your friends. That's an opportunity to speak out. Now, before I go any further, let's pause right there on talking to your friends, the whole talking to your friends question. I know from experience, and I bet you do too, that you have friends and neighbors whom you love and care about who have fallen away from the Catholic faith, or are doing crazy things that you know are going to hurt them or are hurting them. We all have loved ones like that, right? It's my experience that speaking to that person in your life is the hardest person to talk to. I would rather be on camera in front of 1 million people than talk to my brother. Okay? I mean, I'm just saying. Is that just me, or do you guys feel that too? You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So, don't talk to your brother. Don't talk to your cousin. I mean, maybe the opportunity will be there for you to talk to your cousin. Talk to somebody else's cousin. You may be the person that somebody else is praying for that talks to their cousin or their grandchild or whatever. Precisely because you're not in the family. So have that in your mind, that this person who's maybe a few steps removed from you, you may be the proper person to evangelize that person, or to share information with that person, or to open the conversation with that person. Because you don't have a long history with them. You didn't, you know how family histories can get complicated and make it harder to do these kind of things. You may be the one. So I want to put that thought in your mind, that this is a possibility. Okay? Now, next point. Speak out about what? Reach out to whom? All the people on this pamphlet that we've talked about. Some of the people that you've jotted down on your prayer card. Some of those people you will be able to talk to. Or maybe ask your friend to talk to your friend. I don't know how that will all work, but right, you want to have that in your mind. But there's one group of people that is not on that pamphlet that I want to particularly mention to you, and that is the victims of sexual abuse. Whether they're victims of clergy sexual abuse, or harassment at their workplace, or their parents abused them when they were children, or whatever it might be, okay? They're not on that pamphlet. Now, why didn't I put them on the pamphlet? I will tell you, back in 2013, when I first started thinking about this, I asked myself, gee, should we put sexual abuse victims on this pamphlet? And I said, nah. I said no because I said to myself, well, you know, sexual abuse has always been around. This has always been a problem. It's not really fair to blame it on the sexual revolution. So no, I'm not going to do that. But truthfully, the real reason I didn't do it is because, well, I've got all these other people to worry about. Right? I don't have time to deal with all that. I've got all these children with divorce and heartbroken career women, all these frozen embryos. I've got all this to deal with, and I'll just put that aside. Now, truthfully, what was the real reason I didn't put them on the pamphlet? Because I didn't want to. I don't want to deal with it. It's a nasty topic. It's icky. Right? You guys? You looking at me? You get what I'm saying? Yeah, it's awful. It's an awful topic. No one really wants to deal with it. And that's exactly why we now have to deal with it. Because if we don't deal with it, it's pretty clear nobody will. Everybody's going to come up with an excuse to not deal with it. Right? So, I want to put that in your mind too. You may know someone who has experienced some form of sexual harassment or sexual abuse. People don't feel like talking about it. People are ashamed to talk about it. People are hurtful. I mean, it's a very difficult area. And I have also concluded, the whole Carrick thing convinced me that the sexual revolution actually is responsible in a way for a lot of this, for the following reason. The sexual revolution is a set of ideologies, and we've been talking about those ideologies. I believe those ideologies, the sexual revolution ideology, has given cover for the predator and has disarmed the victims. That's how the sexual revolution is responsible in a way for what has gone on and for the extent of what has gone on. Because after all, you remember the very first thing I put up here yesterday. Sex is an entitlement. Problem-free, guilt-free sex is an entitlement. You recognize that as part of our culture, right? Everybody thinks that. Well, who really thinks they're entitled? A rapist thinks they're entitled. Normal people don't think like that, right? So it's a set of ideas that have, in a subtle and not so subtle way, given impetus to those who would be abusive and predatory. And it's also made it more difficult for the victims to resist, because we're all supposed to be sex positive. Have you all heard this term, sex positive? It means you're not supposed to feel guilty about anything. You're supposed to enjoy it all, right? So if you want to say, no, I don't care to do this, you have to give a reason. Purity is not the default position. The default position is, sure, let's roll, let's do whatever. That's the default position. And if you resist, you have to offer an account of yourself. That's what the sexual revolution has done. And that's why I say it really is responsible for a lot of what we're dealing with, because it has provided cover for the predator and taken away a lot of the power of the victims. And in the secular world, here's the other thing I want to mention to you. In the secular world, are you all familiar with the Women's March that came out right after the Harvey Weinstein allegations were made and so on, revelations were made? These are a bunch of women who are marching in Washington against sexual harassment in favor of Me Too. Remember the Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too? Okay, that was the thing. Do you remember what they wore? Okay, they wore pink hats that were supposed to look like a woman's genitals on their hats, right? They were called pink pussy hats. If you type into Google pink pussy hats, I'm not offending anybody, but we're adults here. So what do these women think they're doing? What do they think is going to happen? What they think that they can deal with sexual harassment by some combination of increased law enforcement plus periodically shaming somebody who's been bad. That's what they think is going to do it. In the meantime, they're hanging on to their pills and their pornography and being sex positive. They're hanging on to all that stuff that is actually fueling the culture that allows the sexual harassment to take place in the first place. You see what I mean? So the only people who are really going to be able to deal with this is us. Right? We're it. Because those guys who are on CNN or whatever, they not going to get done. Because people are holding on to things they shouldn't be holding on to. And the more you let go of that modern sexual ethos and embrace the traditional Christian sexual ethic, the more you're going to be able to really confront these problems for what they actually are, right? So that's why I want to commend to you that somebody here may have as their particular personal mission reaching out to people who have been in some way victimized. And maybe that's not your sole mission, but maybe you've got one person in your life or two people in your life or somebody you know who needs your you to accompany them. They need you to be sympathetic and empathetic and to just listen, okay? Because, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I have discovered in talking with sexual abuse victims, they don't want to talk about it. They don't like talking about it. They expect to be further shamed, right? They expect to be not listened to. And sometimes when you let them talk, they kind of really unload and they're kind of, you get kind of creeped out by what they're doing. But I think it's important that we hang in there with them, right? That we be there for them and hang in there with them. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. Some of you may have that on your path. You don't know it yet. Maybe you already do know it. Maybe you do have somebody that you know needs you. So we need to support those victims. We also need to support the people who are blowing the whistle. Okay, so our whistleblowers, whether they're in the church or elsewhere, and there are a number of stories that are in the news. I don't need to catalog them. I don't think there was the very recent one. Monsignor Figueroa, is that how you say his name? You know who I'm talking about? Figueroa? Cardinal McCarrick's former secretary, who revealed, okay, here are some things that I know for a fact happened because I wrote the letters, right? So he's a whistleblower. There's a lady in Buffalo who was the secretary to the bishop. She said, these are the letters that I saw. This is the documentation that I saw. I know they're not telling the whole story, right? Those people need our support. Whether the bishops update the Dallas Charter or change the policies and procedures or anything else, just, whatever they do, we need to be supporting the people who have been victimized and the people who are telling the truth. Okay? Because without that, the best policies and procedures are not going to be enough. You see what I mean? Because this is a complicated set of truths that we have to get at, and therefore we have to support each other in the telling of it. And that's what I mean that we can change the incentives, even if the bishops don't change a bit, right? Because we just kind of nudge them if they need to be nudged, and put a little pressure on them if they need to be pressured. And we can do that in a respectful manner. We don't have to be, rebellious or something. Okay, so speak out and get organized. Now, here's the next point about speaking out that I want to commend to you. Who do we organize? How do we organize? In what way? I want to commend to you the concept that the victims and survivors of the sexual revolution are our potential constituency for change, our potential foot soldiers for change. So think about this, the children of divorce. What did I say on that pamphlet? 45 million children of divorce, adult children of divorce. We got that book back there. Primal Loss, the now adult children of divorce speak out. Some of those people are hopping mad, right? We got the reluctantly divorced. That is people who have been abandoned by their spouses. In some cases, they've lost everything through the courts. And they wanted to stay married. They were keeping their vows. They wanted to keep their vows. Some of those people are hopping mad. Refugees from the gay lifestyle, refugees from the hookup culture. There are a lot of these people out there. So my point is, if you could just get these people all marching in the same direction, even remotely in the same direction, even approximately in the same direction, that's a lot of people. Look at your pamphlet, 45 million adult children of divorce. What if you got 1% of them? What if you got 10% of them? That's a lot of people saying that we need some kind of divorce reform, saying that we need to stop some of these stupid TV programs that say the kids are fine. That's a lot of people we could potentially enlist in our cause. Now, I want to mention to you the post-abortive women, because a lot of you are involved in pro-life work, and you're familiar with this person, this type, the post-abortive woman. She has become a symbol and a fixture at a lot of pro-life events. This lady here, this older lady, with her sign there saying, "I regret my abortion." She shows up to the Walk for Life in San Diego every year with that sign. You know, and you can't just walk past her, right? After all these years, she still regrets her abortion. That person, that sea of signs saying, "Silent no more," right? They've made a difference. They're not the whole thing, but they're significant, right? So what I'm saying is take that concept of the person who's been harmed and who can testify that they've been harmed and generalize that concept so that we have the survivors of divorce and the LGBT subculture and so on. Get them all in the same room. So recently, this is what we did in Lake Charles, and we intend to do this every year. At the end of April, we had the Summit for Survivors of the Sexual Revolution in Lake Charles. And this was a one-day conference for the banquet the night before, kind of like a day, 1 day plus. And what we did is we focused on survivors of divorce and survivors of the LGBT lifestyle subculture. That's what we focused on. So in the morning, we talked about divorce. In the afternoon, we talked about the LGBT subculture. So this is our panel of survivors of divorce. And I call this a witness panel. I had a few experts. Layla Miller, who wrote Primal Loss, that's back there. She came and gave a talk as kind of an expert, so she was a keynote. She gave a keynote talk. But then I had this panel of people who've been through the mill. Okay, so the lady there so that's me over there on the far left, and the lady there at the microphone is Christy Fitzgerald, whose parents divorced when she was 5. And she told what impact that had on her and on her brothers and sisters. And she told a very inspiring story about how her mom has come to be regretful of what she did, and they had some kind of healing and forgiveness within the family. Very beautiful story. The lady next to her is Christy Davis, who's an evangelical woman whose parents were divorced and whose husband later abandoned her. And so she told some of her story of what happened to her and what it was really like. The gentleman on the far end there, is a man from Indianapolis named Alan Chilpasic, who is an abandoned spouse. And we call the abandoned spouses, we have a special name for the abandoned spouses, we call them standers, because they are standing for their marriage. They are standing for their marriage. It's not just that they've been dumped. It's kind of negative. But these are people who still regard their marriage as valid and are living up to their marriage vows, even though the state and sometimes even the church says they don't have to. Okay? So Alan gave this testimony of what it's like for your wife to leave you when you've done all that you're supposed to be doing. What it was like for his children. He told this one very poignant story about his daughter. His daughter used to, when she got scared at night, she would come in bed with her parents. And when the parents divorced and mom remarried, she didn't want to get in bed with her mommy anymore. She didn't want to get in bed with her mommy and a strange man. And so she told her daddy, I don't feel like doing that anymore. And of course, she's 10 or something, she can't really explain why she doesn't want to do it. But now mommy comes out and gets in bed with her if she's scared, or daddy, it just, in the life of a child, this is a big thing. And it's worth talking about. So the point is, you as the audience are getting this information about what it's really like. They, as the speakers, are having the chance to speak, and somebody's listening to them. Remember yesterday when I told you about how silencing the victims is such an important part of the sexual revolution? This is our antidote to that, right? Is to give these people a voice. The other thing we did is I gave out awards. I figured, I'm going to give prizes to my friends. I'm going to invent prizes, and I'm going to give them out to the people I think deserve them. So the night before we had an awards dinner. This was our second annual awards dinner. The gentleman on the far left there is Dr. Robert Gagnon. I gave him an award for the Scholar of the Year. Dr. Gagnon is a biblical scholar, Presbyterian biblical scholar, taught for many years at the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. And he is the guy, if you want to refute gay theology, the gay-affirming, gay-friendly theology, Dr. Gagnon is your guy. He's literally gone through chapter and verse and responded to every one of those crazy things. And for of his trouble, he lost his job at the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. He's now teaching at Houston Baptist, okay? But because this is what happens to people, right? If you stick up for the truth, you get in trouble. Last year, we had, for the Scholar of the Year, we had this guy, Dr. Mark Regnerus, Cheap Sex. I gave him a prize. You guys know who Dr. Mark Regnerus is? He's not in this picture. Do you know who he is? Do you know who this guy is? Okay, this is the guy who wrote the first study saying children of gays don't really necessarily do so great. And he got kicked around, you know, just, it was terrible. Really, it was terrible what happened to him. Well, last year, the University of Texas promoted him. And I said, yeah, baby, he's been thoroughly vindicated, you know? So I gave him a prize. Yeah. So there, Scholar of the Year. The gal in the red dress is Moira Grayland Pete. I gave her an award for the Public Witness of the Year. Her parents were both homosexuals, active homosexuals. Her mother lived with another woman. Her father was a unrepentant child molester. She was molested by both of her parents. Her mother was a famous science fiction writer, the lady who wrote the Mists of Avalon books, okay? So Moira finally wrote a book about her childhood, and basically said this is what it really was. She caught her father in the act and told her therapist, because she'd been in therapy, I don't know if she was I want to say she was either a teenager or early 20s, and she was in therapy trying to deal with this, and her therapist said, if you see him do something, you tell me and I will deal with it, because she knew that for a child to call the cops on her own parents, how complicated that would be and so on. So anyway, she told her therapist, and the therapist, of course, is a mandated reporter. So the therapist called the cops. Her father was arrested. Her father ultimately died in prison. And he was completely unrepentant to his last breath. That he thought it was okay for him to have sex with an 11-year-old. Okay? So Moira testified to this at great cost to herself. So the least we can do is pat her on the back and applaud for her and tell her we appreciate her and tell her we love her. That's the way I look at it. Doggone it. When that guy's do this stuff, we need to do this stuff. Jeff Morgan, the guy on the side there, we call him the activist of the year. This is my guy. I shouldn't say he's my guy, but he's a guy who's working on divorce reform in Texas. And he's actually doing what needs to be done. He's, schmoozing with the legislators and trying to build coalitions and meeting with people and doing those kind of things that need to be done. So, gave him a prize, So this is part of what needs to be done. When I say speak out, this is the kind of thing that you might think about doing. Now, I don't know if y'all are going to do something like this in Wichita. You guys have a great thing going on here with your Midwest Catholic Family Conference. I have a very high opinion of that thing. I went to that last year. I was very impressed with it. And so I have ambitions to be as cool as you all are. So next year, we already have our dates for next year that we'll be doing it July 17th through 19th in Lake Charles. And y'all can put that on your calendar and think about coming. But this is the kind of, I want you to start thinking outside the box of how you can be supportive of people who need our support. Because we can't count on CNN or, a lot of people with authority and big microphones are not going to help us. So therefore, we have to do it ourselves. So, the 3.5-step plan for reforming the church. Number 1, pray. Number 2, learn. Number 3, speak out. Here comes the half step. Repeat. Repeat. Okay? If at first you don't succeed, say your prayers and try again. And I'll tell you something, you aren't going to succeed on the first go-round. You're not. That's okay. You got to keep coming back. You can't get discouraged because you have a conversation with somebody and they ask you a question you don't know how to answer. What you say is, I don't know how to answer your question. Let me get back to you. You go back home, you say your prayers, You educate yourself, you probably call me in the meantime, because I get a lot of calls, and you learn and you go, okay, well, let's talk again, just speak out again. See? You keep coming back, you keep going around this thing. And part of the reason this repeat step is so important is that some of the problems we face are not the sort of problems that can be solved with one solution or one step. A lot of our problems are multi-phase, deep things, and they involve conversation, ongoing conversation. Well, let me give you an example. If you've got a problem inside your family and you're trying to deal with it, a lot of times you're not going to get it right the first time. You're going to confront it, you're going to get some pushback, and you're going to maybe mess up, and then you come back and you try again. You hang in there with each other, right? That's what a conversation is a repeat of being open to what the other person has to say, speaking truthfully to them, and going back around it again. Now, I was talking to one of the participants here, and we were talking about some things that are going on in her diocese. Okay, some of the things that are going on that are not easy to confront. And you want the bishop to do something, you want something to be said, but you can't quite figure out what needs to be said or how to say it. And, you know, people take a stab at it and then it doesn't quite work. You've got to keep going back at it, okay? And Michelle, I'm going to ask you, can you give an instance of this? Because you and I talked about this at lunchtime. If you don't mind, can I put her on the spot? Do we have a mic handy for her? Now, you are being recorded, okay? This is being uploaded directly to the National Security Commission. So no pressure.
Hello, Bishop Conley. This is Michelle.
No, he doesn't have a direct line into them, I don't think. Anyway, go ahead.
I work for the Diocese of Lincoln in the Chancery, and recently, over the last, I think probably started in October or so, we found out well before that there was a priest in one of our large parishes in Lincoln that was removed from the parish for a while. No explanation was given. A first-year priest who happens to be a good friend of mine, and his mom is a good friend of mine, was left alone in the parish and told not to say anything about why the priest was removed. So for about a year, maybe a little bit less, this went on, and life goes on. And then the priest was put back into the parish. It was found out later that this priest had had inappropriate contact with a boy that was 19 years old at the time, but probably had been groomed quite a long time before then. And so this broke, it was very public. The priest was removed from the parish again. So that was all very appropriate. Bishop went to that parish, gave them an opportunity to tell them what they thought. They were very angry and expressed that fairly clearly to him. I was not there, but I know many people that were, and still are quite angry that this had happened and that he was removed with no explanation, and especially that he was put back into the parish. So now, he went and visited them. He told them that he would be coming back, after he kind of figured out the direction he was going to go, which, from my understanding, he never has. So there's a little anger about that. There's still leftover anger, like what do we do with this, that this priest did this in our parish, that we run a school there, that he's been an administrator of a school in another smaller town in our diocese. Bishop went and met with them as well. There was quite a bit of anger there. How long has this been going on? Why weren't we informed? Where is this transparency? And I was sharing with Dr. Morse that, we to treat the victim and talk about the victim and pray for the victim is important, but we don't necessarily think about these people in the parish as victims, although they are. They have this wound that they don't know what to do with. They have this anger. I know for me, that priest was a good friend of mine. He had been assistant at my own parish. I considered him a family friend. I love him, but I can't believe he did this, and I have anger too, and we don't know where he is. He's removed from the parish. Is he in treatment? Has he been laicized? There's been no communication since that initial, this is what happened and we're removing him. And so that kind of healing is on hold, I think, until...
Okay.
Yeah, and like I told Dr. Morris, Do I think the bishop's doing the best he can? Yes. Has the bishop made mistakes? Yes. Do I have an idea what I should tell the bishop I think you should do? No.
Right, right. That's where I want to pause, right there, okay? What I would say, in general, more communication is better than less, right? If you say something and people are upset about it, then you deal with the fact that they're upset. Right now, I think part of what people are upset about, from what you're telling me, is that they haven't, that there's a problem that isn't really being addressed, which is why did this happen, why the back and forth, and what finally happened to this guy. Where is this guy? You know, and should we be reaching out to him in some way? Is he beyond hope? You know, what is going on? So we've got the problem of the victim, the problem of the man's reputation, the possibly innocent priest. You know, there's just a lot of layers of stuff here. And you're not going to get it right on the first pass. I just don't think that's reasonable to expect. So, and I don't know what to suggest here in specific. Like, I mean, I like the way you summarized it. Do I know exactly what to tell the bishop? I don't know. But for us as lay people, and whatever position we might have within the church, to be able to say, okay, I'm here to listen to what's going on and to speak as truthfully as I can, and I want to hear what you have to say, and let's see what happens. And if I don't think you're telling me the whole thing, I'm going to say, you know, I'm sorry, I just don't believe this is the whole story. Tell me more. And I want to hear more. And I'm not going to throw you out of the family, you know, if I don't like what you say, and so on. There's an analogy here with the family. And that is, I have a very dear friend who has a problematic husband. Okay, let us say. Now, the Ruth Institute, you know, we're very big that you should stay married, right? And you should not blow up the family for no reason and so on. But this friend of mine has a husband who is mentally ill, who throws furniture through the wall, who has a pornography problem. This affects the children. You know, that their dad is weird in certain ways that are hard to put into words. This woman needs for her husband to not be living with the rest of the family. This is a case. Even under a fault-based divorce system, you would be willing to say this woman needs for her husband to not live there. But he's still their father. He's still part of the family. You can't kick him out of the family. You can kick him out of the house. You know, you can control the time spent together, but there still has to be some relationship. There still has to be some back and forth because this is their father. You know, and this is the shared history and the shared past that they have. And I think, and we don't know how to deal with that. You know, as a culture, we don't know how to deal with that. Right now, in our culture is, you're either blissfully happily married or you're divorced and you never see each other again. Those are our choices. Well, you know, that's just not good enough. That's just not going to work in the family, it's not going to work in the church. And so there has to be some kind of way of repeat. That's why this repeat stuff, I didn't think of that when I said repeat. I was just thinking you're going to win an argument if you keep at it. You know, but this is obviously much more significant, you know, to try to work through these kind of very hurtful, very deep, very real problems, and still maintain the relationship in some way. I think and I think the more we speak that, the better off we're going to be. The more we put under the rug, the worse off we're going to be. Because it's still under there. You know, it's still there. We just start kicking the can down the road. The road is end. We're at the end of the road. We can't kick the can down the road any further. That's my opinion. So anyway, I put that out there for you. You're all adults. I trust you to take this information and process it and adapt it to whatever situation you're in. But that's my best thought, you know, about how to move forward. So what is your personal mission going to be? You guys, if you spend a half hour learning about something, a half hour a day, maybe at the end of 5 years you'll write a book. Maybe at the end of 5 years you'll have your own podcast or your own little vlog or something. Maybe you will have a local issue that you care about and that you've become an expert about. Or maybe you'll just be the person that everybody goes and talks to because they know you'll listen. There's room for every single one of those kinds of missions. And God has a mission for you. So let's review our pledges. Form a rosary group. Read the Ruth newsletter every week. And I promise you, if you do that, you're going to feel better. Because you're going to know that you're doing what you can do. And you're going to feel better. You're going to feel a whole lot better than, oh my gosh, it's a disaster. I'm banging my head against the wall. Nothing can be done. You know, you got to get out of that mindset. Because you can do something. As we know, and as somebody has already quoted earlier today, Our Lady has said that the final battle between the Lord and the kingdom of Satan will be about marriage and the family. Whoever works for the sanctity of marriage and the family will always be fought against and opposed in every way, because this is the decisive issue. But, she goes on, do not be afraid, for Our Lady has already crushed his head. Thank you very much.